Last week, President Muhammadu Buhari ordered for forensic audit of the operations of the Niger Delta Development Commission, NDDC, that's between 2001 till date. And that was after meeting with governors of the 9 Niger Delta states. This was, was led by Governor Seriake Dixon of Bayelsa State. Now, the NDDC was created by the former President Obasanjo's administration as an interventionist agency, and this was in response to decades of complaints of neglect by the oil-rich region. Now, the government gave the agency the mandate to actually develop the region. President Muhammadu Buhari now noted that what is presently on ground in the South-South region does not justify the huge resources that have been plowed into that area through the commission. And there have been outcries of poor choice of projects, shoddy handling, uncompleted jobs, contractors leaving site after being mobilized. You have it. Now, we require the support of the different tiers of government to actually look into this with the region covered by the NDDC. Now, 19 years on, is the NDDC serving the purpose for which it was created? What more can we do to actually reposition this prospect to actually make the oil-rich region what it should be? These questions, as well as more, will preoccupy us on the program today. Welcome to Nigeria Today. My name is Blessing Abu. We're showing live on NTA News 24. Now in the studio to discuss this aspect, forensic audit of the Niger Delta Development Commission, I'd like to welcome Dr. Victoria Enape. She is the pro-tem president, Chartered Institute of Forensic and Investigative Auditors. Welcome to the program, madam.
Thank you for having me.
Also joining us, of course, another familiar face on the program, as well as some of our programs on the NTA. I'd like to welcome financial experts, Mr. Niyi Akinsheju.
Welcome to the program. Thanks so much. Good evening.
Okay, yes, this outcry of issues relating to the Niger Delta is not just coming on for the first time. And for it to get off to, like they will say, the Nigerian parliament, fill the chest of Mr. President, now saying we need to have a forensic audit of what has transpired from 2001 till dates. It's long time due. What do you think?
Yeah, it's not time due if the president said so, and of course the conclusions were made on his observations, principally anchored on the fact of the resources mobilized, for that particular agency of government, an extra government agency, and compared to the results on ground, to what they can see. And the president said, how can we spend this much and we cannot see this, a commensurate outcome or consequences of what had been spent. And I think what comes to mind really is the fact that the conceptualization of the commission, as it were, was targeted at development. And not just development, extra development, because the region is what you call an oil-bearing region. And as the carrier of the nation's primary #1 resource, it is expected that the impact of exploitation of the resources in that area, because exploitation of resources also comes with negative consequences, environmental consequences especially. So it would mean or translate to the fact that people of that region should benefit extra, since they are also, let's put it quote and unquote, victims, of the downside of exploitation of resources there. So I think the president is in well alignment, to what is happening there since 2001 or thereabout, when the place was, when the agency was inaugurated. And I think the president is also conscious of the kind of investigation he desires. People would have talked of investigation or audit. This particular audit goes beyond just mere attestation of figures and the audit process, but to forensic. I think that basically is about ferreting out the figures behind the figures.
Okay. At least we have an investigative forensic expert here. Let's get to bring her in. Now, Dr. Nape, when we're talking about forensic audit, I can just use the word, the figures behind the figures. What exactly are we up against?
Yes, forensic auditing is evaluation and examination of financial statement of an organization or even an individual for evidence that can be used in the court of law. Okay. That is what forensic is all about. But when we call forensic investigation, it goes beyond that, because forensic investigation is not all about going into the book of accounts or financial statement alone. Okay. Forensic investigation is very wide. So in this case, the president is calling for forensic auditing. Okay. And I think that if you look at what forensic is all about, what should be done in NDDC go beyond forensic audit alone.
So what, at least in your own opinion, what should we be looking out for?
Yes, what we'll be looking out for is forensic audit and forensic investigation. Because forensic audit has to do with looking at the financial statement, evaluate it, and examine it to come up with an evidence that can be used in the court of law for administration of justice.
So you're of the opinion investigative auditing should be included?
Yes.
Okay, because now what we're looking at, based on the outcries from the people talking about shoddy execution of contract, that if they ever even took place in the first instance, there have been allegation of fraud. Even in the last 5 years, people had actually called for the last two NDDC board, aside the other ones that we know. People have called for unnecessary interference, whether from the states that make up the NDDC commission as well. So basically, what should we be digging in this aspect, Mr. Kinsuji?
I want to assume that the president, by using the phrase forensic audits, implies a bigger coverage, you know, especially of investigation. The president must have been so concerned. One, don't forget that it's stakeholders from that region that actually raised that issue within, sure, and it had been at the front burner. So the audit, to my mind, the forensic audit, to my mind, will also include investigation with intent or with ultimate objective, of course, of prosecution, you know, because an audit, even at the primary definition of audit, still serves as a basis of evidence, you know. So when you now say forensic, it is assumed that it can be used as evidence in the court. So I want to believe that is what the president means by this. But going beyond that would also be recommendations on how the agency or the commission should run effectively and deliver for the people. One, it is an agency that has business that delivers services across borders of states. So it's not just about one state. Then two, it is also beholden to political actors, stakeholders in those states. Most importantly is the fact that I believe the commission should not or shouldn't have been operating as a federal stand alone. It should have been a collaboration between the federal and the state government.
Tiers of government, yes, looking at as it trickle down subnational government. Already you made mention of yes, it's cutting across states. Now we've listed about 9 states are involved in the commission, and it should have been something that was going to be so easy for it not to for such government not to actually look into what is happening to the commission as a whole, if it were not some kind of a collaboration in the midst of it all. Have the people actually given the different tiers of government the reason to actually bring them to this level by not asking the right questions?
No, it should be normal. It should be natural to it. We run a federal system, and the truth is that there's no way the presence of a federal agency can be impactful without the collaboration of the subnational if it's operating at that level. Because one, you cannot decide this is the road you want to construct on behalf of the state, for instance. On behalf of 9 states, there must be active input of stakeholders in those 9 states, and the stakeholders, of course, will be led by the governors. Those are people that understand and appreciate what they want in each state, and in fact should also be responsible for some of the contractors, you know, that will be selected eventually. Yes, the NDDC as a commission will take responsibility for the choice of who, you know,
who bid for such.
Yes, you know, is responsible for what. But the choice of selection should also be collaborative. But most importantly, good governance, good corporate governance should also apply. And it's because we don't have this pillar that we landed in this problem. You know, if we are, I can tell you a report we had. A river was to be desilted. It was passed in the budget of the NDC for 2.5 billion. Over a 10-year period, they ended up spending 65 billion naira. I think it's everywhere now. But what that tells you is brazenness, you know, and a mundane approach to corporate governance, as it were.
So that's why I still ask a question. The means for the people, or what you use as maybe the pillars in place for people to actually demand accountability of what is happening. Perhaps over the years, if the people have been consistent in doing that without necessarily keeping quiet, perhaps we don't get to this state.
Yeah, well, you know how the big man syndrome is, you know. But again, don't forget that is a commission. You have members or appointees from each state, you know, constituting the commission. So to that extent, you believe that there are on-ground voices, you know, of the people. But I'm saying it goes beyond that. There must be active invitation of the people, you know, it is because there's a lack of active collaboration. It is because some people, or rather a larger percentage of people, have been sidelined. That's why we have this outcry in the first instance. The Nigerian culture don't usually allow for much outcry where people are feeling good, you know. But in this case, the governors are raising issues. Traditional rulers are raising issues. It means that a majority of them have been sidelined. And I think it's wrong. But even beyond being sidelined, if the commission are delivered on what they are supposed to deliver on, we wouldn't have this issue.
Okay. All right, let's bring back Dr. Nafi. I purposely established all of that because if from what you already told us, it's going to be in different phases. It's not just, okay, financial records of it or its part. There still needs to be the investigative part. And I remember the first time we had you on one of our programs, you talked about the forensic auditing being a science, or, well, I forgot the way exact words you used, but more like is a science outlook to it. And it's all encompassing of the different professions, from the law to accounting and all of that. How will this play out, especially in terms of capacity and also learning curves for most of the people that will be involved, at least, or that the president will be inviting to do that?
Really, I told us the other time that forensic has to do with the use of science and technology for prevention, investigation, and of fraud, and also detection. And I also want us to understand that investigation has to do with looking beyond the physical thing you are seeing. You cannot just use the eyeglass like I am using now, like the traditional auditors normally use to see what a forensic auditor will see, because forensic auditor or forensic investigator look beyond or behind figures, like my brother had just said. It means that we have 4 eyes, and the 4 eyes we're talking about has nothing to do with biro and paper. But
okay, so
we use
the
science
capacity
and
for us to actually do this, how strong is it for us in the different, well, your body, that's the Chartered Institute of Forensic Auditors and Investigation. Yeah. What's the capacity to actually look into this? I'm just saying, should the president decide, okay, they're looking your way, or perhaps other units that have such?
First of all, I want to thank Mr. President for coming up with forensic auditing. This shows that there is a need for forensic auditing in the country, or this shows that there is a need for forensic professionals in the country, which we have been able to build some people. We have given them adequate training, and today we have manpower in Nigeria that can carry out forensic and investigation in
Not
the
just
country.
for NDDC, definitely.
By the grace of God.
Okay.
And with this, with us in Nigeria, all this story we are saying now will not be told in future. By the time our bill is signed by the president, as you are aware, our bill is before the president right now, waiting for assent. By the time president gives assent to that bill, I tell you, we are proactive. We don't believe in reactiveness. So we will put in place some measures to stop some of these lapses that will bring about fraud, money laundering, and all these suspicions, because forensic auditor is not even needed in an organization until there is suspicion of fraud. You know, and that is why I want to thank Mr. President, because he's taking the right step. But I believe that when we are involved, we will help government out.
Yes. All right. Okay, Dr. Nape and Mr. Akinshiji, when we return from this break, we're going on a break now. We'll take a look at what other things we need to do to actually set this investigation on the right path, because definitely it's, like we said, it's long overdue. You're watching Nigeria Today on NTA News 24, and we're looking at forensic audit of the NDDC, as is being expected from the position of Mr. President over the alleged corruption and also the outcry from that region. We'll be right back. If you just joined us, it's Nigeria Today, and my guest, Dr. Victoria Nape, is still seated. She's the pro tem president, Chartered Institute of Forensic and Investigative Auditors, and also financial expert, Mr. Akinshiji, is still with us in the studio as well. Okay, let's get back to you, Mr. Akinshiji. For a period, of course, 19 years is not just a day, or it's not 19 days.
Adulthood.
So definitely, this is some huge work, and perhaps, who knows, some of these contractors, some of these people involved could have gone out of the system by whether way of living or death or something. But we must dig into this aspect. How easy do you see this for whoever the different individuals that be looking into it? How easy do you see this
I
for
think
us?
the first thing is to first even commend Mr. President for including the tenure when he is president. You know, 2001 to 2019. He was sworn in 2015. So, and he had appointed, you know, MDs, CEOs for the agency. So we should.
But then, that, which is another issue, because they're yet to be confirmed. Still before the since August is still around. And people are of the opinion that if they are confirmed and at least settle down to work, this will make it easy instead of making the use of the interim administration. What do you think of that?
Administrative, that's again, it's a debate. But even if you are an interim, you have executive power, you know, to whatever you do as in that office carries the authority of the office, either interim or permanent. But the truth of it is, between 2015 and now, there have been one or two CEOs of the agency. So the fact that he's also investigating that tenure, I think it shows the kind of courage he has, you know, and that nobody is protected or given official protection. Starting 2001 to now, I think the most important thing is documentation.
Good.
And that is where forensic auditors come. I follow them a lot, and I know that the way they handle audits it's different from the way the normal
Auditors will do
look at
regularly.
it, you know. Even if you hide away a document or figures that we are supposed to provide, it is the responsibility of the forensic editor to track the figures out, either by questioning, by interview, or by some other forms of interaction. So because it has been properly qualified as forensic, it is a wide field. So many things can be applied and deployed. So many disciplines. It's a multidisciplinary approach. So it could even be by socialization, you know. So it's easier to track figures when you apply forensic strategies. And I think if this is properly applied, we should be able, within the period of this investigation, to build a track. That's the responsibility of the forensic auditors or investigator. You should be able to tell us a story, starting from the day the commission or the day of the investigation to the end. That is what we'll be waiting for from the forensic auditors.
Dr. Nafi, I know.
He's a forensic auditor.
He's already. He's giving you so much already. Which at least I actually saw you nodding. Yes, you are on track. But then, given the kind of situation usually we find ourselves, issue of records, data, and all of that, I know this is not going to be a very easy job. But then, at the end of the day, we must get all of this investigated and sorted out. And for presentation, in the long run, where we're going to have prosecution, most probably. But then, for us not to go on and on forever, because we know we've had issue of people being investigated and it's taking like forever, at the end of the frustration sets in. How do we get around this?
I'm very happy because we are talking about forensic investigation, forensic auditing right now, because that is just the only way out. The reason why, you see, you know, a lot of people that have gone into huge fraud in Nigeria, let me call it high profile fraud cases in Nigeria, most of them has not been brought to book simply because of lack of evidence. And that is where forensic become very, very important in this case. Now, forensic auditor, when it comes to an organization to do forensic work, what you are there to do is to first of all find out what involved, what happened, how did it happen, who are involved, who are involved, where did it happen, and what did they engage in carrying out this fraud. By the time you get all these things in place, you should be able to now know how to gather your evidence. And this evidence you gather, you don't just gather evidence for gathering sake. One, your evidence must be gathered and preserved and analyzed. The preservation of evidence will help you to have a preserved evidence that you will take to the court. Because some of the people that were involved in fraud cases in Nigeria who are going around dragging their agbada about without being prosecuted, it's as a result of lack of evidence. Even when you get evidence, the evidence can be destroyed. The evidence can be tampered with. And once it's been tampered with, it can never be a good evidence that you can present in the court of law. Which leads me
to the next question quickly, because we must go now. For those who will be involved in this, they definitely have to be people above board.
There must be forensic.
So already it's your body, your body to supply such, or at least to provide us with such ones.
My body should provide professionals that will do this work, because they are well equipped. By the grace of God, the only thing we need now is muzzle, and that muzzle is presidential asset. So having this on ground, it is evidently clear that forensic, the bill to establish forensic and investigative professionals of Nigeria is long overdue.
Okay, and it should be able to put different agencies on their toes now that they know that, okay, we can actually look this way.
Yes.
Your last word, Mr. Kinshidi.
I think this is a commendable move by the president. A major direction is given to us in the fight against corruption, and most importantly, the president, and we want to tell all Nigerians that when government or its agencies are doing something, we must always look at value for money. And this is what the president is trying to achieve here.
All right. Thank you very much. I would like to appreciate Mr. Aneya Kishidu, financial expert. Thank you for joining us on the program this evening. Also, Dr. Victoria Nape, Pro-Tem President, Chartered Institute of Forensic and Investigative Auditors. Thank you very much for joining us on the program.
Thank you.
On behalf of the production crew, I'd like to say thank you for watching too. Let's do this again tomorrow. That will be another time for Nigeria Today. My name is Blessing Abu. Thank you for watching.